In this particular section, we're looking at ratios and rate. Ratios and rate. So we look at writing a ratio as a fraction, writing a rate as a fraction, finding unit rates, find a unit price, translate phrases to expressions with fractions. So let's take a look at writing a ratio as a fraction. So what is a ratio? A ratio simply is a comparison between two like quantities. A ratio is simply a comparison between two like quantities. A ratio could be written in the form of A to B, A over B, or A colon B. Ratios are usually written in simplest form. Ratios are usually written in simplest form. So they want us to write each ratio as a fraction. So we have 15 to 17, 27. So there it is as a fraction. In most cases, they want it in simplest form. Simplify the fraction becomes 5/9. Don't forget they canceled out the common factors here. In simplest form. The next one they have here, ratio of 45 to 18 as a fraction. And then they simplified it. Now, another thing here, too, to remember, on your calculator, if you convert a fraction to a decimal, and then convert that decimal back to a fraction, it'll give it back to you in simplest form. Say it again. On a calculator, if you convert a decimal to a fraction, and then convert that same fraction back to a decimal, it'll give you the fraction in simplest form. You get the idea. Now we're looking at ratios involving decimals here. So we have 0.8 to 0.05. So they got rid of the decimals, multiplied both by 100. Okay. Now, someone might ask, what really happened here in this case? Well, in this particular problem, here we have 0.8 divided by 0.05. Now, notice this denominator goes out to the hundredths place. So I can rewrite this as 0.80 divided by 0.05. Sit on. Simply because I just add the 0 there, and that goes up to the hundredths place. And that's going to be 80 over 100 divided by 5 over 100, which is going to make it 80 over 5. Because 0.8 is the same thing as 0.80. Then once we get to that point, we can go ahead and simplify it even further. 5 goes into 5 one time. 5 goes into 80, I believe it's 16 times. There. So now in this particular problem here, they want us to write each ratio as a fraction of whole numbers. So we have 4.8 divided by 11.2. Notice they both got to the tens place. Okay. So you can get rid of the decimals simply by multiplying by 10. That'll give me 48 over 112. Since they're both even numbers, it simplifies 3/7. Now we have a ratio here of two mixed fractions. So I get it into the form, right, as a fraction. Then I convert my numerator and denominator into improper fractions. So I have 5/4 divided by 10/8. Remember, when you divide by a fraction, you flip the second fraction. It becomes 8/19. You simplify to 10 over 19. Now we have applications of ratios here. Here, Hector's total cholesterol is 249 milligrams per deciliter. And his cholesterol is milligrams per deciliter. Find the ratio, total ratio here. And B, assume the ratio is less than 5:1, is that it's considered good? What would you suggest to Hector? So we have here 249, 39, which simplifies to 83 over 13. Okay. And this simplifies even further. To 6.4 to 1. How did they get that 6.4 to 1? So notice that this ratio here is at 5 to 1. Notice this ratio here is at 5 to 1. So when they have 249 here to 39, and that simplifies to 83 over 13. And the ratio they have here is at 5 to 1. So I want to find out what the ratio would be here if I set it equal to 1, the denominator equal to 1. So I have 13 over 13, and I have 83 over 13, which will give me 6.4 to 1. So what this tells me is that Hector's cholesterol level is high. So in this one here, the Americans with Civil Disabilities Act guidelines, the wheelchair ramps require one rise, vertical rise of 1 inch for every foot. So what's the ratio of the rise to run? So that's going to be 1 inch to 1 foot. But they're in different units. So if you do the computation, you got to be the same unit. So they put them in both in inches, so 1 foot is 12 inches. 1 inch is 12 inches, the ratio is basically 1 to 12. You see that there. Notice how they changed the foot into inches. Now they're the same. Now they look at a rate. Now, as I said before, A ratio is a comparison between two like quantities. A rate is simply a comparison between two unlike quantities. A rate is simply a comparison between two unlike quantities. Like miles per hour, pounds for the dollar. So this one here, they have 525 miles in 9 hours. They want the rate as a fraction. So there's our rate, and then they simplify it. 170 miles in 3 hours. Now, a unit rate is simply a rate per unit, rate per a pound per dollar, pounds per dollar. How much does it cost per ounce? Per 1 ounce. It's a rate per 1 unit. So this is an example here of unit rates, miles in 1 hour per 1 unit. Examples here of rates. Now, in order to find a unit rate, you divide out here the numerator by the denominator. Okay, this gives us a denominator of 1. So let's look at an example of that. So to find the unit rate here, they have 384 divided by 32. So they have 384 divided by 32. So we have dollars here, and we have hours here. So to find the unit rate, you divide both by 3 by 32. And it was $12 per hour. That's how you find a unit rate. So they give us a rate here at 455 per 14 gallons. Okay, and they want us to find a unit rate. So we divide the numerator and the denominator by 14. And that gives us 32.5 miles per 1 gallon. And that's how you find your unit rate. Unit prices. Here again is the price per unit. Okay. Could be price per ounce. So looking at an example here of that. So now they give us $3.99.24. $24 bottles. So to find the unit rate, in this case, we divide both by 24. So now we have a price per 1 bottle. In this case, it's 17 cents per bottle. Now, think about unit price. You can use it to do comparison shopping. In this case here, the number of loads. $14.99 for 64 loads. Another brand for $15.99 for 80 loads, which is the better buy. So you compare the price per load. So you have to find the unit price for both of them. So I have here So I have here $14.99. And 64. Then the other one I have $15.99 and 80 loads. So to find the unit price on each, I divide both the numerator and denominator by the same thing. In this case here, I'm dividing both by 64. And it gives me here $2.23 per one load. Approximately 23 cents a load. Now we look at the other one. We divide the numerator and denominator by the same thing, by 80. In this case here, I have 19 cents a load, roughly, approximately 20 cents a load. So you can see which one is cheaper. Okay. So the cheaper one is going to be the powder here. Cheaper. Now they want us to translate phrases into expressions with fractions. So here we have 427 miles per hour, some H hours. So that's what the expression would look like, 427. Yeah. X students to 3 teachers, and there's your expression there. Y dollars for 18 hours, and there's your expression there. And that is the end of 5 point, I believe that's 5.6.